Eth stood on the observation deck of the Coalition warship Unyielding Talon and watched the stars streak past. He had stood in this same spot before 42 different battles. He had killed thousands of enemies across dozens of worlds. He had never once felt his heart beat faster before a fight. That was the way. Eth was 7 feet tall. His body was covered in thick green scales that could stop a blade. His eyes were golden and sharp like a predator. His claws could tear through metal. His species had been warriors for 10,000 years, and in all that time they had never known the feeling of fear. It was not that they were brave. Bravery meant overcoming something. They simply did not have the ability to feel afraid. Their brains had never developed that function. They walked into battle the same way they walked into a room. There was no difference to them. This made them perfect soldiers. The Coalition had used warriors as their front-line troops for centuries. When there was a war that seemed impossible to win, they sent the. When there was an enemy that terrified every other species, they sent the. Eth and his kind had never failed. But today was different. Today, Eth would fight alongside humans. He had heard of them, of course. Everyone in the galaxy had heard of humans by now. They were a young species from a small blue planet called Earth. They had only been traveling among the stars for 200 years. In the grand history of the galaxy, they were newborns. And yet they had already made a name for themselves. Eth did not understand why. Humans were small and soft. They had no scales, no claws, no natural weapons. They lived short lives and died easily. By all logic, they should be a minor species, forgotten among the thousands of others. But the Coalition kept talking about them, kept asking for them, kept putting them in important missions. Today, Eth would finally see why. The door behind him opened. Eth turned and saw a human woman walking toward him. She was small, barely reaching his chest. Her skin was brown and her hair was black and cut short. She wore the armor of a Coalition Marine, and she moved with the confidence of someone who had seen many battles. "You must be Eth," she said. "I'm Captain. My squad will be working with you on this mission." Eth looked down at her. "You are the human commander." "That's right." "You are smaller than I expected." Smiled. It was a strange expression. Did not smile. We get that a lot. She led him to the briefing room where her squad was waiting. There were 12 humans in total, all wearing the same armor, all carrying the same weapons. Eth studied them carefully. They were checking their equipment over and over again. They were talking to each other in low voices. Some of them were tapping their feet or moving their hands without reason. One young soldier kept touching a small picture he carried in his pocket. Eth noticed something else. Their eyes were too wide. Their breathing was too fast. Some of them had small drops of water on their foreheads. "Your soldiers are unwell," Eth said too. She looked at her squad and then back at him. "They're fine." "They are showing signs of physical distress. Their bodies are reacting to something." Was quiet for a moment, then she said, "They're afraid." Eth did not understand the word at first. He had heard it before, in reports and studies about primitive species, but he had never seen it in person. "Afraid," he repeated. "This is the survival response, the one that makes prey animals run from predators." That's one way to describe it. Why do they have this response now? There is no predator here. Looked at him with an expression he could not read. "We're about to drop onto a planet controlled by the Hollow. The Hollow have killed millions of people. They turn bodies into weapons. They eat minds." She paused. "My soldiers know what we're walking into. Their bodies are preparing them for danger." Eth considered this. But this response seems to weaken them. They are distracted. They are wasting energy. How does this help them survive? "It doesn't always help," admitted. "Sometimes fear makes people freeze or panic. But when it works right, fear makes us careful. It makes us alert. It makes us think about every possible danger before it happens." "Do not have this response." I know that's why you're famous, tilted her head. You just walk straight into battle, right? No hesitation, no doubt. Yes. And you've never lost a fight. Not yet. Nodded slowly, must be nice. Eth did not know what to say to that. The humans confused him. They were clearly capable warriors. Their combat records were impressive, but they carried this strange weakness inside them, this fear that made their hands shake and their hearts race. How could they fight while feeling such things? The ship's alarm sounded. They had arrived at 7. Eth looked out the window and saw the planet below. It had once been a beautiful world with green forests and blue oceans. Now it was brown and gray. The hollow had consumed it. They had turned its cities into nests and its people into drones. The mission was simple: land on the surface, fight through the hollow swarms, reach the Planetary Defense Control Center, activate the defense grid so the fleet could bombard the main hollow nest from orbit. Simple, direct, the kind of mission we're made for. Eth walked to the dropship with the human squad. He noticed that their fear responses had gotten stronger. The young soldier with the picture was whispering something under his breath. Another soldier, a large man named, was clenching and unclenching his fists. But none of them stopped. None of them turned back. They walked onto the dropship with their fear visible on their faces and their weapons ready in their hands. Eth found this curious. If fear was meant to make them avoid danger, why were they not avoiding it? Why did they keep moving forward? The dropship launched. The planet rushed up to meet them. Through the windows, Eth could see the hollow swarms moving across the surface like black rivers. 30 seconds to landing, the pilot announced. Captain stood up and looked at her soldiers. Listen up. We all know what's down there. We all know some of us might not come back, but we have a job to do and we're going to do it. Stick together. Watch each other's backs. And whatever happens, keep moving forward. The soldiers nodded. Some of them were pale. Some of them were sweating, but they all checked their weapons one more time and prepared to fight. Eth watched them and felt something he had never felt before. It was not fear. He was not capable of fear, but it was something like curiosity mixed with something else he could not name. These strange, soft, frightened creatures were about to walk into a nightmare. They knew they might die. Their bodies were screaming at them to run away. And they were going anyway. The dropship hit the ground. The doors opened. The air outside smelled like rot and metal. In the distance, Eth could hear the screaming of the hollow. Move out, ordered. The humans moved. And Eth, for the first time in his 43 combat missions, found himself wondering if there was something about warfare that he did not understand. The battle for 7 had begun. The surface of 7 was a dead place. The buildings had collapsed into piles of gray stone. The trees had turned into black skeletons. The sky was yellow with poison clouds, and the ground was covered with a strange organic material that seemed to breathe. Eth moved through this wasteland with his weapon raised. Behind him, the human squad followed in a tight formation. They moved slowly, checking every corner, every shadow, every pile of rubble. Too slowly, Eth thought. They were wasting time. We should move faster, he said to Captain. The control center is 2 kilometers ahead. At this speed, it will take us 3 hours to reach it. Shook her head. We move careful or we don't move at all. The hollow are ambush predators. They hide and wait for prey to walk into their traps. I have fought many enemies. I have never been caught in an ambush. There's a first time for everything. Eth did not argue. He simply moved ahead of the group, walking at his normal pace. The humans could catch up when they were done being afraid of shadows. He walked for perhaps 50 meters before he heard shout behind him. Eth, stop. Eth turned to ask why. In that moment, something massive burst from the rubble to his right. It was a hollow drone, a creature made of twisted metal and rotting flesh, with 6 legs and a mouth full of spinning blades. It had been hiding under the stones, completely still, waiting for someone to walk past. Eth raised his weapon, but the creature was too fast. It lunged at him with its bladed mouth open wide, then slammed into Eth from the side, pushing him out of the way. The hollow drone's blades missed Eth by inches. Before the creature could attack again, the human squad opened fire. Dozens of bullets tore through the drone's body. It screamed and fell. Eth lay on the ground, staring up at the yellow sky. Was beside him, breathing hard. "How did you know?" Eth asked. "Know what?" "That the creature was there. I did not see it, I did not hear it. How did you know?" Helped him stand. The human's face was pale and his hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. "I didn't know, I just felt it. Something about that pile of rubble felt wrong. My gut told me there was danger." "Your gut?" "Yeah, it's like instinct, a feeling that something bad is about to happen." Eth did not understand. There was no logical way to know about a hidden enemy without seeing or hearing it, but had known. His fear, his constant alertness, had saved Eth's life. Captain walked over. She did not look angry, but her voice was firm. "Next time, stay with the group. We move together or we die alone." Eth nodded. For the first time, he considered that perhaps the human's caution was not weakness. They continued forward, and now Eth stayed with the formation. He watched how the humans moved. They never relaxed. Their eyes were always scanning. They communicated constantly, using hand signals and whispered words. "Contact left," one soldier would say. "Clear," another would respond. "Movement ahead," could be nothing. "Treat it like something, take a look." Private, a small woman with quick eyes, moved forward carefully. She looked at the movement, studied it, and reported back. "Dead body. Hollow got it weeks ago. Nothing alive." They moved on. This happened again and again. The humans spotted dangers that Eth walked past without noticing. A patch of ground that was too soft, a doorway that was too dark, a silence that was too deep. Eth began to understand. The human's fear was not random. It was a tool. It made them notice things that a fearless warrior would miss. They expected danger everywhere, so they found it before it found them. But the fear had a cost. Eth could see it wearing on them. After 2 hours of constant alertness, the soldiers were tired. Their movements were slower. Their reactions were duller. Fear used energy, and they were running out. Finally, they reached the control center. It was a large building at the center of the ruined city. The doors were open. The lights inside were still working. There were no hollow in sight. "We made it," Private said. "That wasn't so bad." But Captain did not move. She stood at the entrance and stared inside with narrow eyes. "Something's wrong," she said. Eth looked at the building. "I see nothing wrong. The path is clear. We should enter and complete our mission." "It's too easy. We fought through dozens of drones to get here, but the control center is unguarded. The Hollow aren't stupid. They know this building is important. Perhaps they did not have enough forces to guard it." "No," shook her head. "They wanted us to get here. This is a trap." Eth felt a flicker of impatience. The human's caution had helped them so far, but now it was becoming an obstacle. They were so afraid of danger that they saw it even where it did not exist. "Captain," he said, "we do not have time for this. Every minute we wait, more Hollow are coming. We must enter the building and activate the defense grid. And walk straight into whatever they have waiting for us. If there is a trap, we will fight through it. That is what warriors do." Looked at him. In her eyes, Eth saw something that might have been pity. "That's how think. Walk forward, fight everything, never retreat. But that's not how you survive against an enemy that wants you to walk forward." "Then what do you suggest?" "I don't know yet. Give me a minute to think." But Eth did not have a minute. He had fought 42 battles by walking straight at the enemy. He had never lost. The human way was too slow, too careful, too afraid. He walked past and into the building. The entrance hall was large and empty. Eth's footsteps echoed on the stone floor. He looked around for any sign of danger but saw nothing. The humans were wrong. There was no trap here. He took another step. The floor beneath him cracked. Eth had one moment to understand what was happening. The hollow had weakened the floor. They had created a thin shell of stone over empty space. It looked solid, but it could not hold weight. He tried to jump back, but it was too late. The floor collapsed and Eth fell into darkness. He heard shout his name. He heard the humans running toward him. Then he hit something hard and the world went black. When Eth woke, he was alone. He was lying in a tunnel made of organic material. The walls were wet and warm, like the inside of a living creature. The air smelled like rotting meat. In the distance, he could hear clicking sounds and wet movements. He was inside the hollow nest. Eth stood slowly. His body hurt, but nothing was broken. He still had his weapon and his blade. He looked up and saw the hole he had fallen through far above him, too far to climb. He would have to find another way out. Eth started walking through the tunnel. He had been in worse situations before. He had fought through enemy bases alone. He had survived ambushes and sieges and desperate last stands. This was just another battle. But as he walked deeper into the nest, he began to notice something strange. There were no hollow attacking him. The tunnels were empty. The clicking sound stayed at a distance, never coming closer. They were watching him, letting him walk, leading him somewhere. And for the first time in his life, Eth felt a small cold feeling in his chest that he did not recognize. Eth walked through the living tunnels for what felt like hours. The walls pulsed around him like a heartbeat. The floor was soft and sticky. Strange lights glowed in the organic material, casting shadows that moved on their own. He had fought many enemies in his life, but he had never been inside one before. The hollow nest was not just a base or a camp. It was a single massive organism. Every tunnel, every wall, every floor was part of the same creature. The drones were its hands. The swarms were its blood, and somewhere in this darkness was its brain. Eth kept his weapon ready. He moved through tunnel after tunnel, always going down, always going deeper. The clicking sounds followed him. The shadows watched him, but nothing attacked. He came to a large chamber and stopped. The room was round, with walls that reached up into darkness. In the center of the chamber was a pool of black liquid that bubbled and steamed. And standing at the edge of the pool was a creature unlike any Eth had seen before. It was tall, nearly 20 feet. Its body was made of the same organic material as the tunnels, but harder, covered in thick plates of chitin armor. It had 4 arms and 2 legs, and its head was smooth and eyeless. Where its face should have been, there was only a flat surface with a single vertical slit. The hollow patriarch, the brain of the nest. Eth raised his weapon and fired. The shots hit the patriarch's armor and did nothing. The creature did not even move. Then it spoke. The voice did not come from the creature's body. It came from inside Eth's head. It was cold and old and felt like insects crawling through his brain. "You are," the voice said. "We know you're kind." Eth fired again. Again, the shots bounced off the armor. He switched to his blade and charged at the creature. The patriarch moved one of its arms. It was not fast, but somehow Eth could not reach it. The air around the creature was thick like water. Every step forward took all his strength. His blade moved slower and slower until it stopped completely, inches from the patriarch's chest. "You cannot hurt us," the voice said. "You are inside us now. We control everything here." The arm pushed, and Eth flew backward. He hit the wall hard and fell to the ground. "We have killed many," the patriarch said. "Thousands of your kind. They all fought the same way. They all walked forward. They all died." Eth stood up. His body was screaming with pain, but he did not care. He did not give up. He did not retreat. He walked forward and fought until he won or died. He charged again. This time the patriarch caught him with 2 arms and lifted him off the ground. Its grip was like stone. Eth struggled, but he could not break free. "You do not fear," the patriarch said. "We can feel it. Your mind has no fear at all. How strange, how incomplete." "I do not need fear. I am a warrior." "No, you are prey." The vertical slit on the patriarch's face opened. Inside, Eth saw something terrible. Images, memories, thousands of them all playing at once. He saw warriors falling to hollow swarms. He saw them being consumed, their bodies broken down and rebuilt into drones. He saw their scales turn to armor. He saw their claws turn to weapons. He saw their eyes, still alive, still aware, trapped in bodies that no longer belonged to them. The hollow had not just killed, they had eaten them, used them, made them part of the hive. "Your kind is easy to kill," the patriarch said. "You always charge, you never stop, you never think. We simply wait and you walk into our mouths." The images kept coming, more dying, more bodies being consumed, more warriors turned into monsters. And then Eth saw something else. He saw humans. The patriarch was showing him memories of humans fighting the hollow, but these memories were different. The humans did not charge. They did not walk forward without thinking. They ran. They hid. They retreated. They came back with new weapons and new plans. They burned nests and poisoned swarms and found weaknesses that no other species had found. They were afraid. Eth could see it in their faces, hear it in their voices. They were terrified. And they kept fighting anyway. The hollow had killed many humans, but they had never broken them. Every time the hive thought it understood human tactics, the humans changed. They adapted. They found new ways to fight. "The humans are difficult," the patriarch admitted. "Their fear makes them unpredictable. They do not fight fair. They do not die quietly. They are annoying." Eth struggled in the creature's grip. His arms were pinned. His legs were useless. He was completely helpless. "But you," the patriarch said, "you are not difficult. You are not unpredictable. You walk straight into our trap because that is what do. You are here because you did not think. You did not fear. You did not survive." The creature began to squeeze. Eth felt his bones bending. In moments his body would break. And in that moment, something changed inside him. It started as a small cold feeling in his chest, the same feeling he had noticed in the tunnels, but now it grew. It spread through his body like ice water. His heart began to beat faster. His breath came quick and shallow. His muscles tensed. His mind screamed one word over and over: "Run!" Eth had never felt this before. He did not have the biology for it, did not feel fear. But standing here in the grip of this ancient monster, with the images of his dead brothers still burning in his mind, his brain built something new. It built fear. And fear gave him something he had never had before: desperation. He did not think, he did not plan, he simply acted. His tail, which he had never used in combat, whipped around and stabbed at the patriarch's face. It was not a strong attack, but it was unexpected. The patriarch flinched. For 1 second the grip loosened. Eth tore himself free. He hit the ground running. He did not know where he was going. He did not care, he just ran. Behind him the patriarch roared. The sound shook the walls. The tunnels came alive with clicking and screaming as thousands of drones woke up and began to hunt. Eth ran faster than he had ever run before. His fear pushed him forward. His fear found paths through the tunnels. His fear told him which turns to take, which shadows to avoid, which sounds meant danger. He had spent his whole life thinking fear was weakness. Now he understood. Fear was not weakness. Fear was survival. Fear was the voice that said live when everything else said die. The drones were everywhere now. Eth fought when he had to and ran when he could. He took wounds. He lost blood, but he kept moving. Finally he saw light ahead. Real light, not the glow of the nest. The surface was close. He burst out of a tunnel and found himself in a collapsed building. Through the broken walls, he could see the yellow sky of 7. He had escaped. Eth fell to his knees. His body was broken. His mind was shattered. And inside him the fear still burned, cold and sharp and terrible. He had learned something in that nest. Something that changed everything he thought he knew about warfare and survival and strength. They were not the greatest warriors in the galaxy. They were just the easiest to kill. They walked forward until something stopped them. They never learned. They never adapted. They never survived in ways their enemies did not expect. The humans were different. The humans were afraid, and that fear made them something the Hollow could not predict. Something the Hollow could not defeat. Eth heard footsteps. He raised his head and saw Captain and her squad running toward him. They had been looking for him. They had not given up. Eth shouted, "You're alive." He tried to speak, but no words came. He just looked at the humans with their frightened eyes and their shaking hands and their unbreakable spirits. And for the first time in his life, Eth understood what true strength looked like. The humans brought Eth to a small shelter they had made in the ruins of a collapsed building. It was not much protection, but the walls blocked the wind and the ceiling blocked the poisoned rain. They had set up a small camp with medical supplies and emergency rations. Eth sat against the wall while a human medic named Tors cleaned his wounds. His scales had protected him from the worst damage, but the Patriarch's grip had cracked several of his ribs. Tors wrapped bandages around his chest with quick, practiced movements. "You're lucky to be alive," Tors said. "Nobody survives falling into a hollow nest. Nobody." Eth did not respond. He was staring at his hands. They were shaking. He had never seen his hands shake before. Did not shake. Did not tremble. But here he was, a warrior of 43 battles, and his hands would not stay still. Captain sat down beside him. She looked tired. Her armor was covered in black hollow blood, and there was a new cut on her cheek. "You went through something down there," she said. It was not a question. Eth nodded slowly. "I met the Patriarch, the leader of this nest. It showed me things. It showed me how many have died to the Hollow. Thousands of my kind consumed and turned into drones." He paused. "It said we were easy to kill." Was quiet for a moment, and now. "Now I feel something I have never felt before. A cold feeling. My heart beats too fast. My thoughts will not stay calm. I want to run. I want to hide. I want to be anywhere but here." He looked at her. "Is this what fear feels like?" Nodded. "Yeah, that's fear. I do not like it. Nobody likes it." Eth looked around the shelter. The other humans were resting, eating, checking their weapons. All of them had the same tension in their bodies that Eth now felt in his. The same tight shoulders, the same quick eyes, the same readiness to run or fight at any moment. "You feel this all the time," he said. "Before every battle, during every mission. This weight in your chest, this voice telling you to flee. You carry this with you always." "Since the day we were born," said. "Fear is part of being human. We feel it when we're children hiding from the dark. We feel it when we're adults fighting wars on alien worlds. It never goes away." "How do you bear it?" "Thought about this." Then she stood up and walked to the center of the shelter where the other soldiers were gathered. "Hey," she said, "our friend wants to know how we handle fear. Anyone want to share?" The soldiers looked at each other. Then the big man who had saved Eth from the drone stepped forward. "I'm scared of suffocating," he said. "When I was a kid, I almost drowned in a frozen lake. Ever since then, I can't stand having my face covered. I have nightmares about running out of air." Private spoke next. "I'm scared of the dark, always have been. When I was young, the power went out during a storm and I spent the whole night crying. I'm 32 years old and I still sleep with a light on." Sergeant, an older soldier with gray in his hair, nodded. "My first deployment was on a moon called 6. We lost half our squad in one night. I still dream about it, wake up screaming sometimes." One by one, the humans shared their fears. Fear of death, Fear of failure, fear of losing friends, fear of pain, fear of the unknown. Every one of them carried something that frightened them. And every one of them was still here, still fighting, still moving forward. Eth did not understand. If you are so afraid, why do you fight at all? Why not stay on your where it is safe? Tors laughed. Safe? Earth isn't safe. Nothing is safe. Humans have been fighting and dying since we first walked on two legs. We used to be prey animals, you know. Cats and wolves and bears all wanted to eat us. We didn't have scales or claws or armor. We were soft and slow and weak. But you survived. Because we were afraid, fear kept us alive. It made us watch the shadows. It made us build weapons. It made us work together because we knew we couldn't survive alone. Tors finished wrapping Eth's bandages. Fear isn't our weakness. It's the reason we're still here. Sat back down beside Eth. Fear is just information. It's your brain telling you that something dangerous is nearby. What matters is what you do with that information. What do you mean? Some people let fear control them. They freeze or run or give up. But other people use their fear. They let it make them sharper, faster, more careful. They feel the fear, acknowledge it, and then do what needs to be done anyway. Eth considered this. His whole life, he had believed that fearlessness was the highest quality a warrior could have. Were respected throughout the galaxy because they felt no fear. They charged into any battle without hesitation. But now he saw the truth. Fearlessness was not strength. It was blindness. They charged forward because they could not imagine that charging forward might be wrong. They did not retreat because they could not imagine that retreat might save them. They did not adapt because they could not imagine that adaptation might be necessary. The humans were different. They were afraid of everything. And that fear forced them to think, to plan, to prepare for every possible danger. They expected things to go wrong because their fear told them that things always went wrong. And when things did go wrong, they were ready. I think I understand now, Eth said slowly. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is feeling the fear and fighting anyway. Smiled. It was a tired smile, worn down by years of fighting, but it was real. Now you're getting it. Outside the shelter, the sounds of the hollow were getting closer. The clicking, the screaming, the wet movement of thousands of drones converging on their location. They found us, said, checking his weapon. Stood up and looked at her squad. They were all afraid. Eth could see it in every face, every movement. But they were also ready. How long until the orbital strike coordinates are uploaded? She asked. Checked a small device. The control center is still locked. Someone needs to get inside and activate the defense grid manually. Then we need to hold position for 10 minutes while the fleet prepares the bombardment. Can we get to the control center from here? There's a tunnel entrance 200 meters east. It leads under the building. We can come up from below. Nodded. Then that's what we do. We get inside, activate the grid, and hold until the fleet burns this nest to ash. She looked at Eth. You don't have to come, you've been through enough. Eth stood up. His ribs screamed with pain. His body wanted to rest, to hide, to run away. The fear inside him was louder than ever, telling him that he would die if he went back out there. He felt all of this, he acknowledged it. And then he picked up his weapon. I will come with you, he said. I am afraid. I am more afraid than I have ever been in my life, but I will not let that stop me. Studied him for a long moment, then she nodded. Welcome to being human. The squad moved out. Eth walked among them, feeling his fear with every step. It was terrible. It was exhausting. It was the worst thing he had ever experienced. But as he walked beside these small, soft, frightened creatures, he realized something. He had never felt more alive. The tunnel was dark and narrow. The squad moved in single file, their weapons raised, their lights cutting through the blackness. The walls were made of stone here, not organic material. They were still outside the nest, but not for long. Eth walked in the middle of the formation. His fear was a constant pressure in his chest, a voice that never stopped whispering warnings. Every shadow could be a drone, every sound could be an ambush, every step could be his last. He hated it, but he also understood it now. The fear was keeping him alert, it was keeping him alive. They reached the entrance to the control center. It was a metal door, partially covered by organic growth from the nest below. Worked on the door's lock while the others kept watch. "Got it," said. The door opened with a hiss. They moved inside. The control center was a large room filled with machines and screens. Most of the equipment was damaged, but the main console was still working. Ran to it and began typing. "Defense grid is coming online," she said. "I need 10 minutes to complete the upload." 10 minutes, repeated. She looked around the room. There were 3 entrances, the door they came through, and 2 maintenance hatches on either side. "We hold here. Take the left hatch. Take the right. Everyone else cover the main door." They took positions. Eth stood beside at the main door, staring down into the darkness of the tunnel. For a moment, everything was quiet. Then the clicking started. It came from everywhere at once. From below them, from around them, from the very walls. The sound of thousands of hollow drones waking up and moving toward them. The first wave hit the left hatch, opened fire immediately. The sound of his weapon filled the room, loud and constant. Bodies fell, but more took their place. Then the right hatch burst open. Threw a grenade and the explosion scattered the drones, but only for a moment. They kept coming. Then the main door. Eth saw them pouring out of the tunnel. Twisted shapes of metal and flesh, running on too many legs, screaming with too many mouths. His fear spiked so hard that for a moment he could not move. Then fired beside him, and the spell broke. He fought. He fired until his weapon was empty, then he drew his blade and cut. The drones fell before him, but there were always more, always more. 8 minutes, shouted. A drone got past Eth's guard and slashed at his arm. The pain was sharp and hot. He kicked the creature away and kept fighting. "Down," someone shouted. "Tors, get over there." Tors ran to the left hatch. Was on the ground, his leg torn open by a drone's claws. Tors dragged him behind cover and started working on the wound. The drones pushed harder. They could sense that the defenders were weakening. They poured through the hatches in endless waves. 6 minutes. Took a hit to his shoulder. He switched his weapon to his other hand and kept firing. His face was twisted with pain, but he did not retreat. Eth's blade broke. He picked up a fallen drone's arm and used it as a club. It was clumsy, but it worked. 4 minutes. The main door was getting harder to hold. There were too many drones and not enough defenders. Eth stood shoulder to shoulder, fighting for every inch. Then the wall behind them exploded. The Patriarch stepped through the hole. It had come up through the nest, through the floor of the control center itself. It stood in the middle of the room, taller than anything Eth had ever seen, its eyeless face turning toward and her console. "You cannot stop us," the Patriarch said in Eth's mind. "You will die here, you will become part of us." Did not hesitate. She raised her weapon and fired at the creature's face. The shots did nothing. "Keep working," she shouted. "Everyone else focus on the drones, I'll handle this." She charged at the Patriarch. It caught her with one hand and lifted her off the ground. Her weapon fell. Her legs kicked at empty air. "You are afraid," the Patriarch said. "I can taste your fear. It is strong. It is delicious. Why do you fight when you know you will lose?" Laughed. It was a wild, desperate sound. "You think you can scare me? I was scared before I got here. I was scared when I woke up this morning. I'm always scared." She pulled a knife from her belt and stabbed it into the Patriarch's arm. The creature did not feel pain, but the attack surprised it. Its grip loosened for just a moment. Tore herself free and fell to the ground. She grabbed another weapon from a fallen soldier and kept shooting. "And I always fight anyway." The patriarch roared. It raised all four of its arms to crush her. Eth moved. He did not think. He did not plan. His fear pushed him forward, screaming that he had to do something, anything, or everyone would die. He grabbed a metal pole from the damaged equipment and ran at the patriarch. He was not strong enough to hurt it. He was not fast enough to dodge it. But he was afraid, and his fear made him desperate, and desperation made him unpredictable. He jammed the pole into the joint where the patriarch's arm met its shoulder. The creature turned toward him, distracted for one moment. 2 minutes, screamed. Saw her chance. She grabbed a grenade from her belt, pulled the pin, and threw it at the patriarch's open face slit. The grenade went in. The explosion was contained inside the creature's head. The patriarch staggered. Its movements became jerky and uncontrolled. It was not dead, but its brain was damaged. The drones felt it. They hesitated. Without the patriarch's guidance, they became confused. 1 minute. Eth stood together, wounded and exhausted, fighting the last few drones that still attacked. 30 seconds. His fingers flew across the console. 10 seconds. The patriarch was recovering. Its head was reforming. It reached toward the console. Upload complete. The sky turned white. Through the broken ceiling, Eth saw the orbital bombardment begin. Massive beams of energy fell from the heavens, striking the hollow nest again and again. The ground shook. The walls cracked. The organic material around them began to burn. The patriarch screamed. Its body was connected to the nest. As the nest died, it died with it. Eth watched the creature fall. Its legs gave out. Its arms went limp. The eyeless face turned toward him one last time. You were afraid, it said. You learned fear how. Eth looked at the humans around him, was being carried by Tors, was leaning against a wall still breathing, was smiling through her tears, was covered in blood, half of it her own, but she was standing. I learned from them, Eth said. I learned that fear is not weakness. I learned that the greatest warriors are not the ones who feel nothing. They are the ones who feel everything and fight anyway. The patriarch's face slit closed. The creature was silent. They escaped through the tunnel as the nest burned behind them. The walk to the extraction point took hours. They carried their wounded. They left their dead, but they kept moving. When the coalition ship picked them up, there were only 5 of them left. Eth and, out of 13 who had started the mission, only 5 survived. But the mission was complete. The hollow nest was destroyed. 7 could be reclaimed. Eth stood at the observation window and watched the planet burn below. His hands were still shaking. He suspected they would shake for the rest of his life. Stood beside him. Does it ever get easier? He asked. She shook her head. No, you just get better at carrying it. Eth thought about this. He thought about his people, walking into battle without hesitation for thousands of years. He thought about how many of them had died because they could not imagine defeat. He thought about the patriarch's words, "You are predictable, you are prey." And he thought about the humans, small, soft, frightened, carrying the weight of fear every day of their short lives, and still they fought, still they won, still they refused to give up. I understand now why the galaxy fears humans, Eth said. Looked at him. Yeah, why's that? It is not because you are strong. It is not because you are fast. It is not even because you are smart. He paused. It is because you are afraid of everything and you fight anyway. No enemy can predict that. No enemy can prepare for creatures who face their fears every single day and choose to keep going. Was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled. That might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said about us. Eth turned away from the window. His fear was still there, cold and sharp in his chest. He knew it would never leave. He knew he would carry it into every battle for the rest of his life. But he also knew that he would keep fighting. Because that was what the humans had taught him. That was the secret they carried in their soft bodies and their frightened hearts. Courage was not the absence of fear. Courage was fear that had decided to keep going anyway. And in a galaxy full of monsters and nightmares and endless darkness, that was the most powerful weapon of all. Eth walked off the observation deck, ready to face whatever came next. His hands were shaking, his heart was pounding, his mind was full of terrible memories. But he was not going to stop. He had learned from the best.